On today's show, Jalen Green leads the way with 29 points as the Houston Rockets handle Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns. Welcome back, Fred VanVleet, for real this time. Alperen Sengun's perfect night and so much more. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Thursdays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Also, check out our Locked On Rockets newsletter. Would sincerely appreciate all of that support. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Just go on over to FanDuel.com. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. Houston Rockets getting the 111-104 win against the Phoenix Suns. That final score does not do the game justice. The Rockets handled the Suns. They were up 15 when the white flag was waved, when the reserves were all put in, and then the Suns' third stringers went off and had like a little 8-0 run in the final couple minutes of this game. So that final score does not actually do this game justice. The Rockets did a phenomenal job defensively in that fourth and final quarter, shutting things down. Budenholzer pulled KD with like 5.5, 6 minutes left in the quarter and didn't sub him back into the game. And Budenholzer waved the white flag a lot earlier than even Ime did, subbing out his main guys, his starters. But we got a lot of different angles to get into from this game. We got to talk about Jalen Green's big night, leading the way with 29 points. Welcome back, Fred VanVleet, and we mean that for real this time, seeing as how he came back. The last time he came back, he hurt his ankle or re-aggravated the same ankle a minute into the game that he was playing. So an actual return for Fred VanVleet this time. Alperen Sengun's perfect night. The wrestling match between Steven Adams and Mason Plumlee, and a few other bits and bobs from this game. But let's start with Jalen Green and his impact, because he flat out led the way for the Rockets in this one, completely outperforming both of the all-star two guards on the other side of the aisle for the Phoenix Suns. Jalen Green finished the night 29 points, 8 of 16 shooting, 3 of 6 from three-point range, 10 of 11 at the free throw line. Did a great job getting to the charity stripe in this game. 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, couple turnovers, plus 16 in his 37 minutes. Jalen Green completely outplayed both of Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. Beal led the way for the Suns with 25 points on 9 of 14 shooting, had 3 assists, no rebounds. And then Devin Booker, 19 points on 7 of 15 shooting, few rebounds, 4 assists, couple turnovers. But this just felt like a really good all-around scoring game from Jalen Green. He got off to a hot start early, had 11 points in the first quarter. He and Dillon Brooks got the Rockets off to a great offensive start. Dillon hit a couple threes early, had a little midi fading shot. Dillon's midi was on point in this game too. Dillon with 19 points, 8 of 14 shooting. But for Jalen, had that hot start and then turned it up again in the third quarter, where he's had 14 of his 29. And this was a good kind of like 3-level scoring game for Jalen Green, where he really was getting it done beyond the 3-point line. He was knocking down some mid-range shots. He was getting to the rim. He was getting to the free throw line. And when Jalen has these types of really all-around scoring performances, it's really hard to find a way to stop him, right? He's a guy that his weakness oftentimes has been the outside shooting is the thing that has kind of held him back. This year, it really feels like he's leveled up as far as his finishing in and around the basket, really utilizing his athleticism. We know he's got the lightning quick first step and the explosiveness to be able to get past anybody guarding him one-on-one on the perimeter. And then, using that insane athleticism of his to elevate and finish above and around defenders in and around the basket. And for a Phoenix Suns team that number one, struggles defensively. The Suns team, their defense is just Swiss cheese. That's been their problem all year long. They just do not have a good defensive team, a good defensive mindset even. There were multiple like possessions in this game where the Suns just fell asleep at the wheel and like gave open wide open like backdoor cuts, or just flat out just lost a guy defensively and gave up easy buckets right at the rim. But Suns were missing Nick Richards in this game, so Mason Plumlee starting in place of him. The Suns had no rim protection in this game. They've got some length on their roster, right? They've got Kevin Durant, they've got Bol, and they've got some decent-ish defenders here and there. Royce O'Neal, Ryan Dunn are solid perimeter defenders, but this Suns team does not have, a good defense to begin with, and they don't really have the individual defenders to adequately slow down Jalen Green, and he absolutely took advantage of that in this game. And when he has this aggressive mindset of getting downhill and attacking, even after, a couple, early, getting the ball poke checked away and losing it on a drive, or getting, blocked once or twice at the rim, keeping that aggressive mentality is key for Jalen Green, and attacking and also forcing the issue, right? Getting to the free throw line. We ran the stat, on an episode, I don't know, a few weeks back, where when Jalen Green gets to the free throw line 6 or more times, not even hits 6 free throws, but gets to the free throw line 6 or more times, the Rockets, I think at the time I had the record at like 12-4 or something when Jalen attempts 6 or more free throws. So him getting to the charity stripe 11 times is huge. Him being a rhythm guy and a scorer and just seeing the ball go through the hoop is huge for him. And it helps unlock so much more of his game. But on top of that, it's just the decision making. And that's been the biggest kind of element of growth for Jalen this year, has been his ability to really read how defenses are guarding him, how they're playing his teammates, and understanding when and where. Okay, they're going under the screen, so I'm gonna pull for 3. Okay, they're playing up on me. I'm gonna drive and I'm gonna attack. I'm gonna collapse. Okay, they're sending 2. They're showing a crowd. Where are my kickout passes? And this felt like easily one of the best offensive performances from Jalen Green this season, because it felt like he was just in control all game long. It never felt like it didn't feel like at any point that the Suns defense was speeding him up or, forcing him into ill-advised shots. Like, there was never a singular point where I thought to myself, okay, that was a bad look, or that was a drive that, you drove directly into 2 or 3 defenders, or, you should have kicked it out for this guy to shoot an open shot. None of that. This was just a 10 out of 10 decision-making performance from Jalen Green. So again, leading the way with 29 points, did have 4 assists mixed in there, had a few steals as well. And one of the ancillary benefits, and we'll talk about Fred's impact and his return to action as well, but one of the ancillary benefits of having Fred VanVleet back is I feel like it takes a lot of that pressure off of Jalen Green, right? Fred has a very calming influence and impact on the entire roster, but I think it really helps Jalen knowing that he has his backcourt partner back in action and can, rely on Fred to initiate the offense, to get the Rockets into their sets, and that it doesn't have to be Jalen Green walking the ball up every single time, initiating the offense. Jalen can be played a little bit more off ball at times. He can, be the recipient of some passes rather than having to initiate all of the offense, as oftentimes the only legitimate ball handler on the floor in the absence, or when Fred VanVleet was out. So just a really strong game for Jalen Green. Rockets picking up their 4th win in a row. And hey, beating the Phoenix Suns is always really nice because the Rockets own the Suns draft pick. So coming up, do want to talk about Fred VanVleet's return to action, his impact, and what he does for this Houston Rockets team, as well as Alperen Sengun's perfect night and the other parts from this game, the wrestling match from Steven Adams and Mason Plumlee, as well as how the Houston Rockets defense was able to slow down and limit the Phoenix Suns. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by TurboTax. Look, Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no more worries. Now, this is taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time update only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Today's episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Look, do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out and online shopping and entertainment costs, it's really easy to lose track of your spending. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food, and I'll be honest, it was an embarrassing amount of money going towards eating out and fast food and all that stuff. Now I budget smarter and I save more. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your very first year. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, welcome back, Fred VanVleet, for real this time, right? Because he came back before, and I'll be honest, that performance was not a very inspiring performance, and unfortunately, we were all under the impression, at least originally, oh, he's back and he's just playing awful. But he came back, he rolled his ankle, and that's why he was really bad in that one game back, and then he had to sit out some more games. So it was great to see Fred VanVleet out there in action again. Finished the night with 10 points on 4 of 9 shooting, 2 of 6 from downtown. Had a couple rebounds, had 4 assists, 4 steals, 0 turnovers, was a plus 16 in his 28 minutes of action. And talked about it a little bit there in segment 1, what Fred does for Jalen Green. But Fred just, again, he just has this calming influence on the entire Rockets roster. He has the ability to get the Rockets into their sets. He's one of the best communicators on the team. And I do think at least from a defensive perspective, the Rockets definitely missed having Fred, because he doesn't just help organize the offense. He also helps keep the defense on its toes. The Rockets have a lot of guys up and down the roster that are vocal defenders, guys that call things out. But 2 of the most vocal guys on the team are actually Jabari Smith Jr. and Fred VanVleet. And even though the Rockets have a lot of really great, staunch defenders up and down the roster, those 2 guys are routinely calling out things and yelling and communicating with their teammates the most. And so losing both of them at the same time, I think really did do a number on the Rockets defense. Fred is he's just a really impactful guy, right? Fred's impact goes well beyond what you see on the stat sheet. And weirdly enough, it's almost like Fred is the Rockets' like emotional support point guard. Like, he really is this team's emotional vocal leader. Like, he is the floor general, and he is I don't want to say Fred is like the heart and soul of this Rockets team, but he kind of is, right? Like, they lean on him as like the big brother. He's the guy that taught them all how to win and how to play winning basketball, and having him back does so much for the confidence of these young guys up and down the roster. Even though Fred's actual on-court production, especially this season, has wavered here and there, and he's had some bad games. He's also had some phenomenal and some really good games. He's just a stabilizing force for this team. And there's nobody on the roster that can do what Fred VanVleet does, in large part just taking care of the basketball. Talked about the Rockets having 25 assists on 40 made shots, but limiting their turnovers was huge in this game. And that's what Fred does. Despite 5 turnovers from Alperen Sengun, which we'll talk about the turnovers too from Sengun. But despite the 5 turnovers from Sengun, only 9 turnovers as a team. And a big part of that is the security of having Fred out there to handle the basketball, of having him out there to take some of the pressure off of Jalen Green, of having him out there to help initiate sets for the Rockets and get guys going. And the biggest thing to me is this Rockets team has so much talent. And when the young talent is firing on all cylinders the way that it was in this game, with Jalen Green leading with 29, Sengun's perfect night, 20 points on 7 of 7 shooting. We'll talk about his performance in a minute too. Dillon Brooks absolutely cooking, 19 points. Tari with 15. So all starters in double figures. But I think there was a tendency at times when Fred was out that the Rockets would put together a really good stretch and then they would give up a really bad stretch, right? They would put together a really good stretch and then they wouldn't be able to kind of just keep things going smoothly. And that's what Fred really helps with. The Rockets do not lose many of the minutes where Fred is on the court. And in this game in particular, of all the different lineup permutations that Fred VanVleet was a part of, on his way to his plus 16 evening, only one lineup that Fred was a part of was a net negative. And that was, what was this? There was a lineup with Fred, Dillon, Aaron Holiday, Jabari Smith Jr., and Jeff Green. In fact, it was the lineup that they put in at the end of the first half, where it was the switch everything lineup, and then Jeff Green gave up the wide open midi because whoever it was, Beal or Booker, I forget who, like stopped on the dime, and Jeff was just a little too slow to get back in for the contest. And that was the only lineup where Fred was a minus in the game. All these other lineups that Fred was a part of, net rating, 0, net rating, or plus minus, 0, plus minus. There's 3 there. There's a 4 here. There's a 7 here. There's a 4 here. So I think in this game in particular, the Rockets were able to run away with this one at the top of the fourth quarter, was where they were really able to build on their lead. They went into the fourth quarter with a 9-point advantage, 88-79, but they were able to build on that lead in the Fred VanVleet minutes there at the top of the fourth quarter with Fred and Jock and Tari, and I believe Aaron Holiday was in the mix there as well. And that lineup was able to expand the lead and get it all the way back out to, and push that lead all the way out to the double digits, like 13, 15, 17, whatever they ballooned the lead up to. And then Ime was able to bring the starters back in, bring Jalen Green, bring Sengun back in, and Dillon Brooks, and those guys were able to take it home to where Fred didn't even have to check back into the game. So not only did they realistically not lose any of the Fred minutes, they were able to expand upon that lead at the top of the fourth quarter. And I think that's just the unique thing about what Fred provides to this team is he gives them some security. He gives them the ability to kind of either at least maintain status quo and keep the scoreboard moving or keep the game in control so that when the heavy hitters come back in, when Jalen comes back in, when Sengun comes back in, those guys can get back to going to work. And Fred is then able to, take his foot off the gas a little bit. And again, so much of that is just his overall IQ, his control of the game, all the different things, all the intangibles that he really brings to the table, including just like some of the reads that he makes are really impressive. Fred is, I would consider him like a safe kind of passer. He doesn't hit many home run plays, although he hit one to Alp in this game, that dang near full court pass over the top of the defender where Alp was able to lay it up and into the basket. That was a beautiful play from Fred. A great recognition for the kick ahead pass, and even more phenomenal finish from Alperen Sengun at the rim, catching that ball over the top of a Suns defender and being able to finish right there at the cup. So just a great welcome back game for Fred VanVleet, and a guy who has been sorely missed in this Rockets lineup. And again, just a stabilizing force for this team. Coming up, want to talk about Alperen Sengun's perfect evening, as well as quite easily one of the best passes, if not maybe the best pass of Sengun's career in this one, as well as the final little other pieces from this game. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Look, I'm Houston born and bred. I went to the University of Houston. I'm pulling for the Cougs all tournament long. That's who I've got my eye on. But it doesn't matter if you got a different alma mater, if you're from a different city, if you went to a different college. go support your team over on FanDuel. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly, no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get on the college hoops action all tournament long. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Look, this was a game, and I wanted to mention, I wanted to talk about the Suns defense earlier in the show, or sorry, not the Suns defense, the Rockets defense earlier in the show than I did. They did a really good job slowing down the Suns in this game. They forced 16 Phoenix turnovers. They didn't really capitalize on a ton of the turnovers that they actually forced in this game. They only wound up scoring, what was it, 18 points? I apologize. No. Yeah, 18 points off of those 17 Phoenix Suns turnovers, 16 individual turnovers, 1 team turnover. So they only scored 18 points off of those turnovers, which wasn't like a ton, but because they took care of the basketball themselves, they afforded themselves plenty of opportunities, or plenty more opportunities than the Suns actually wound up getting. The Suns only took 73 shots in this game, which is kind of ridiculous. The Rockets finished with 88 total shots. So even though the Suns outshot the Rockets across the board, Phoenix from the floor, 53.4%. The Rockets only 45.5%. Phoenix from long distance, 35.7% from downtown. The Rockets only 31.6%. From the charity stripe, Phoenix 80%. Houston 76%. Phoenix was more efficient across the board than the Rockets were, but because they just got up less total shots, because they just didn't get as much done with their possessions, because they didn't take care of the basketball, that's how the Rockets kind of won this game. And one other element here that I thought was a little funny is the last time these two teams played, Kevin Durant was unguardable. The Rockets literally had no answer for Kevin Durant. They were throwing everybody at him. They had all their wing defenders available. They had him and Thompson out there, and they had nothing that could slow down KD. And they kind of still didn't really have anything to slow down KD in this one. Now, if memory serves, that last game that they played against the Suns, I think KD had 7 turnovers, if I'm not mistaken. He had 5 turnovers in this game, but he had 19 points on 8 of 12 shooting. They just didn't go to Durant enough in this one. Beal, 25 points on 9 of 14. Devin Booker, 19 points on 7 of 15 shooting. I don't know if it was like a mistake to give more of those attempts, more of the usage to Book or to Beal or what, but KD really felt like the guy that the Rockets kind of didn't have an answer for. But he also wasn't the be-all, end-all for this Suns team, because you had Beal and Booker in this game, and it still kind of didn't matter at the end of the day. The Rockets were able to do just enough, and they were able to pull away there in the third quarter, in the top of the fourth quarter. And again, credit to the Rockets defense, especially there in the fourth quarter, really limiting the Suns. Again, they basically held the Suns to what was effectively a 17-point fourth quarter until the reserves all checked in and reeled off that like 8-0 run to close out the game to make the final score 111-104. So big credit to the Rockets defense up and down the roster. Some great performances from Tari, Eason, Dillon Brooks. Those two guys, DB especially, kind of trying to hold KD, being physical with him, forcing some of those turnovers, and the steals, man. The steals that Jalen and Fred VanVleet walked away with in this one were big time. Alperen Sengun had kind of a quiet night as far as just his overall attempts. Had the fewest field goal attempts of any of the Rockets starters, only 7 shots in this game, but finished with a second highest scoring total on the team, 20 points, because he was perfect from the floor. 7 of 7, hit his first shot of the game, which was a 3, and was 5 of 6 at the charity stripe to go along with 4 rebounds, 7 assists, 1 steal. Did have the 5 turnovers, but one of those, first off, he had a couple really great assists. He had the no-look dime early on to Dillon Brooks in transition. That was great. And then he had quite possibly maybe the best assist of his career. That's a tall order, because LP has had some absolutely insane assists over the course of his career. But it was the no-look spinning bounce pass to a cutting Tari Eason. Tari's cutting in from the opposite baseline. Sengun is in the middle of the paint and has all the Suns' eyes were on him, and he looked off. I think it was who was it off in the corner? I apologize. Tyus Jones was in the corner guarding Tari. Eason lost track of Tari, and Sengun like looked him off with his eyes to where Tyus Jones thought Tari was flaring out for a three and like just completely lost. Like, get that man a map. And hit the like spinning no look or look off bounce pass and was just on the money to Tari, who then got up and dunked at the rim. Just an absolutely phenomenal play there. And Sengun did an overall good job facilitating out of the middle of the court. Again, he led the team with 7 assists. The turnovers are a little frustrating for LP. He has some moments where, you know, I think it kind of boils down to sometimes he's just, you know, looking maybe to initiate contact too much, or maybe he is, you know, getting hit a little bit and losing control of the basketball and some of his drives, some of his spins to the rim, that kind of thing. And those can be kind of tough to swallow, especially when you feel like there's contact and when you feel like you're not getting the whistle. But at the end of the day, Alpi just needs to be more capable, or more, I guess, what I want to say. What's the word that I'm looking for here? He just needs to be more in control of the ball when it's in his hands. Like, sometimes he's just doing a little bit too much with it, too much pirouetting, too much spinning, too much finesse. And sometimes you just need to make the simple attack. Sometimes you just need to back down the defender and make the quick move and, you know, not spin directly into 2 other guys, or try to attack when there's, you know, defenders waiting in the wings, waiting to collapse on you. And him cleaning up the turnovers needs to be a focus. It didn't really feel like this game was because they were like sending doubles at him or anything. Some of the turnovers were just, you know, losing his handle in the paint, losing it in traffic, that kind of thing, bobbling a pass or 2 here and there, you know, things like that, or misjudging a pass that he tried to make to a teammate. Little things like that are more than capable of him, you know, cleaning things up. And again, I'm trying, you know, my best not to overreact. Like when Jalen has like a turnover game of like 4 or 5 turnovers, or Alpi has a game of like 4 or 5 turnovers, those guys handle the basketball a lot. Those guys are the guys that are at the top of the opposing team scouting report every single game. So it's understandable that they're going to have the most defensive focus and attention placed on them. So they are going to have some games where they have the turnovers. But when you are still producing at a high level, when you're scoring, when you literally have a perfect game, shooting from the floor 7 of 7, it's hard to be too upset about a handful of those turnovers, given everything else was done so incredibly well in this one. Elsewhere for the Rockets, the Steven Adams, Mason Plumlee like dust up was hilarious, because it was not quite exactly where Amin Thompson body slammed Tyler Herro, but something about that side of the Toyota Center court, just. The Rockets love throwing down bodies on that side of the court, because it happened kind of close to where Amin Thompson threw down Tyler Herro. But Steven Adams and Mason Plumlee were jockeying for rebound positioning, and Plumlee kind of threw like a elbow or like a forearm back into Steven Adams's like chest / like neck area. And Adams, you know, didn't even retaliate or anything. He just turned around, and, you know, there was kind of like an incidental little headbutt between those two. And then they got tangled up, and Adams had his arms up and threw Plumlee's like arms, and Plumlee took exception to that. So then he kind of, grabbed Adams, and then once Plumlee grabbed Adams, it was game over. Adams was grabbing Plumlee and literally grabbed him. And you could only kind of see it because it immediately turned into a scrum, right? Everybody was surrounding these 2 massive human beings, and Adams picked up Plumlee, and Plumlee is not a small boy, and then body slammed him on the court. Just kind of took him down, like a little bear hug, just fell down with him. And it took a minute for those 2 guys to get separated. There was a big huddle for a second, and eventually got those 2 guys apart. 2 technicals, but because it was ruled a fight by Tony Brothers standards, they were both ejected. So the Rockets did lose Adams early in the pretty early on in this game, but they still won the double big lineup minutes yet again. The Rockets continue to dominate when Adams and Sengun share the floor with one another. In fact, I believe it was the Rockets' best lineup by a plus-minus standing in this game, was the Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, Jabari Smith Jr., Alperen Sengun, Steven Adams lineup. Yep, they finished a +8 in this game. That was the best lineup that the Rockets ran, +8 in 2 minutes and 21 seconds played together. So those double big lineups continue to wreck shop. Other teams just really don't know what to do about it. The Rockets didn't get to run it a ton this game since Adams only wound up playing 11 minutes, but made an impact in those 11 minutes, had 4 rebounds, had an assist. And I wanted to talk about this one episode ago, and we'll talk about it in a future pod, but it really feels like the double big lineups also really help Jabari Smith Jr. a lot. Playing him at the 3, playing him at the small forward spot provides mismatch opportunities for him. And you saw that in this game as well. He struggled from downtown in this one, 0 of 6 on the long ball for Jabari, but he was 4 of 6 inside the arc. And I think that was the big thing for him, is being able to play against smaller guys is really helpful for him in his minutes, and hitting some of those bread and butter little turnaround shots and shooting over the top of smaller guys is a lot easier than him playing up against some of the bigger bodied guys that he guards or plays against when he's playing at the 4 or even sometimes at the 5 spot. So the Adams dust up was funny. And after the game, Ime was joking about the fact that it wasn't even really a wrestling match, because if Steven Adams really wanted to wrestle somebody, he could do a lot more than what we saw on the court in this one. So overall, a really solid win for the Rockets, taking care of business against a struggling Phoenix Suns team. They've now won 4 games in a row. This homestand, this 6-game homestand, we talked about the importance of it the other day, and so far the Rockets are doing what they're supposed to do. They've won every single game so far on this homestand. 4-game win streak started with the road win against the Pelicans. They carried that momentum into the home game against the Pels, took care of business against the Magic, now against the Phoenix Suns, and they've got a few more easy ones coming up. Got to continue to take care of business, because right now they are only 1 loss back, in one game back in the loss column of the Memphis Grizzlies, who are currently sitting as the 2 seed in the Western Conference. It's all jumbled up right now out west. And yeah, I mean, there's a very realistic possibility for the Rockets to not just earn home court advantage, but for them to leapfrog the Lakers, the Nuggets, and the Grizzlies, and potentially get back to as high as the 2 seed in this Western Conference if they continue to do what they're supposed to do, which is beat up on the bad teams. And as long as you can go 500 down the stretch of this season against the good teams, then they're going to be looking pretty good as far as their playoff positioning is concerned. But with that, I want your thoughts from this Rockets win against the Suns. What stood out to you in this game? Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Remember, the best way to help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Also, check out the daily Locked On Rockets newsletter. Would sincerely appreciate that. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.